Hi, my name's Sue Ellam and I'm a professional tarot reader. And I've been a reader for 25 years now. And I use a mythic tarot, which is based on Greek mythology.
And I'm Carrie Beleno. I'm an intuitive Reiki master teacher and spiritual life coach. And I have the words. So today I pulled out two words. One I pulled out and one fell out. So we're going to do them both in two different videos. And the first one we're going to deal with is grudges.
Ooh.
Grudges. And you know what, Sue? I think you should go first with this one.
Okay, all right. Grudges. Okay. All right, we're starting off here with the Seven of Swords. Now, the Seven of Swords is about using tact and diplomacy, a softly approach. Now, when people hold grudges, they quite often don't say them out loud. They might say them to other people, but they won't say them to the person that they're holding the grudge about. And so there's a lot of going round back doors and not being kind of really upfront and honest. But also, so with tact, they use tact in diplomacy, but it can often hide what they're feeling inside as well, because grudges are pervasive, and I know people who've held grudges for years and years and years. Sometimes they hold a grudge until the other person gets sick, and then suddenly they realize that it's not important after all. I've kind of seen that scenario happen. So we're starting off with the using tact and diplomacy to cover up what they're feeling inside. With the Queen of Wands, it becomes a mission, and and sometimes it doesn't take much for someone to get a grudge against someone, and if they don't talk about it to that person, then they can just hold it, and it festers, and it becomes it becomes their vision for the future. And so that person can do no right, because once you've got something stuck in your head about somebody, what they've done to you, or what you perceive or think they've done to you, then that becomes your truth, and nothing else will, as I said, I've seen people hold grudges for years and years, and then the other person gets sick, and then they start talking. But it's only when something drastic happens that the grudge, they realize it's such a small thing, and it could have been resolved so many years before if they'd just spoken out and said something. But this is holding it like a torch, and it being the truth, and therefore that other person, doesn't matter what they do, there's still this kind of, oh yeah, but you did this, so I don't trust you. Or somebody told me you did this, and therefore I don't trust you. So it becomes something tangible. And with the Page of Swords here, then then there's a tendency to gossip and tell people, do you know what they did? Do you know what they did? Look what they did to me. They did this, they did that, without actually having the other person's side of the story. And as it's a bit like Chinese whispers, the longer it goes on, the bigger the story becomes, and a lot of times it's about things that if they'd just spoken at the beginning and said, look, I'm not happy about this, and then the other person could have explained, given their reasons, and then if those reasons weren't sufficient, then make a decision, okay, I don't want that friendship anymore, I don't, but it builds up and it builds up, and then we have this kind of gossip and and people looking under stones saying, oh yes, and the other day they said this, and the other day they said, and everything comes under this filter of a grudge, filter of, let me look for the so say negative things they're doing. Let's ignore anything positive because we don't want to hear anything positive about this person. We only want to hear the negative stuff, and then we can build on that. And it can be really destructive. It can destroy people if they don't have their own kind of network. And it destroys the person who's holding the grudge as well, because they have this energy, and so therefore, even if they are, so say, they can be a spiritual person, or they can be somebody that has a lot of other really, really good qualities. But this grudge is like a stone, and that will block their energy. And as I said, if the person is actually, when people have a vision, quite often, well, not always, but quite often they've got a vision of something kind of bigger than themselves. And this will stop them, because they will be spending so much energy holding this grudge against someone else, or sometimes they have a grudge against an organization. And rather than dealing with it and getting it sorted, the grudge becomes like their friend, and they will nurture it and build it up into something that it never was in the beginning. And if somebody else has done something specific, then just deal with it. Tell them what you think, that what they did was inappropriate, and that this is the end of a friendship or whatever, and then walk away. But once you've actually spoken your mind, then you don't have to hold a grudge, because it's all out in the open. You've told the person, I don't want to know you anymore because you did this, and it's entirely unacceptable. And then you don't have to hold a grudge. A grudge is often when things are unspoken. And so this is the gossip that's going on. If you can let go of it, we have the Nine of Cups, and there's a reason for celebration. So if you give 100% to your friends, to your relationships, to the work that you do, then you have reason to celebrate. So my advice is, don't let grudges kind of burden you, because you burden yourself, not the other person you hold the grudge against. And if you can just deal with it, talk to the person face to face rather than gossip about them behind their backs, and then you'll have this reason for celebration, because you will feel so much lighter in yourself, and you know that you've given 100% of yourself. But if you're holding a grudge, you can't give 100% of yourself to anything, because there's that part that's held back. And once you have a grudge against one person, then you're looking for maybe other people that maybe will let you down in some way. So you've always got your antenna out for someone else also to hold a grudge against. It can become a habit. So those are the cards.
Well, a couple of things that I want to talk about, which is the emotional impact. You all know, if you've been watching anything I share, the emotional impact on our health is what I try to encourage people to notice and shift out of, because those emotional imbalances are what manifest themselves in our bodies. I've seen it 1,000 times, and no one will ever convince me otherwise. And one thing you said about the stone, you mentioned the stone, and it triggered a memory for me of Lori Ladd. If she's a channeler, and I do watch her channels, and she talks about these rocks being in the river, and that life is just like flowing through the river, and our emotions are supposed to come and go, and we flow through the river. And of course, I'm paraphrasing. And she talks about how when we have these traumatic emotions or situations, we tend to grab onto the rock that's passing by us and hold on to this rock for dear life. And we don't let that emotion or that trauma flow through us and continue down the river. And when you said the word stone, or that it acts like a stone, it made me remember that video, because that's really, it feels very true to me. And the second card you said, the grudge becomes a mission. I think that is so key, to watch that happening in ourselves. So if you have a grudge that's becoming a mission, it's time to let it go. And it doesn't necessarily even require, I mean, all of Sue's advice is fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily even require telling the person anything. It's inside. It just, I mean, if resolving it with the person helps, then by all means do so. But the personal mission that grudge becomes is emotional. It's that emotional stone that builds up here in our chest. It's grief, it's regret, it's guilt, it's anger, it's revenge, and it lives in our chest. It lives in that heart chakra. And you know, I can't help but think there's a virus going around out there that affects our chest, that affects our lungs, that affects our breathing. And, you know, 2 + 2 is 4. If we tend to be a traumatic society, we tend to live in trauma, we tend to hold trauma like that stone or that rock or that mission, and we will be affected by dis-ease and potentially viruses when we can't move past that trauma or that what perceived injustice. So I think this word coming up today is super relevant to everything that we're going through. And it needs to be taken a look at internally ourselves. Please just let those emotional stones go, because it isn't doing you any good. So for your health, your well-being, it's time to move through the grudge.
Yeah, and it's also, you know, when we get grudges, there's a kind of a blame for the other person, but we're not actually thinking about the lesson we need to learn from it. What is our part in that? What have we drawn to us to learn from that situation? Maybe just the thing we have to learn is forgiveness. Maybe that's all it is. Mm-hmm. But that we haven't attracted that for no reason.
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you like, please like, share, and subscribe if this resonates with you.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay, bye.